feature.
Tickle.
Everything can change in an instant, whether or not you're ready.
This wasn't the world I wanted, but it was the one I found myself in. This time I'm ready. Because I know war.
War never changes.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman Dodd, and I am wandering the northern wasteland. That's right, I am going to be talking about something rather special, near and dear to my cold, dead, irradiated heart. That's right, I'm talking with some of the team from Modifius today, and we're going to be talking about the forthcoming Fallout 2D20 RPG that will be coming out at some point in the near or far future if you happen to be in cryo sleep. So the Fallout series, for those of you that have been following this show for quite some time, is something that I got into a couple of years ago when it came to Fallout 4. I was actually looking back in my Facebook memories, recounting how excited I was for it. I think I just beaten one of the DLCs recently. I think I just beaten Far Harbor, I think it was, and realizing how much I really fell in love with this game and the community surrounding it. And Fallout 4 just introduced me to the wonderful world of Fallout, really, because I'd played Fallout 3. I didn't really get into it. Same with Fallout New Vegas, and I know people are yelling at their computers. Those were the best ones, but I still had fun. So when I found out there was going to be an official Fallout RPG, I got excited. So fortunately, I have friends in irradiated places, and I wanted to welcome the publishing director and head of Modifius, and that is Chris Birch. And we're going to talk a little bit about Fallout 2D20, which is currently in beta right now. And we're just going to talk about all things Fallout, what we hope to accomplish with this game, and just a little about how we're going to crawl out through the Fallout and see how things move forward. So without any further ado, let's welcome Chris to the show.
Hey guys, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for joining us during, well, our own version of being locked in the vault, if you really wanted to put a little bit of a point on it, though this virus won't turn us into super mutants. It may just kill us. It's kind of weird how life imitates art in a weird, kind of funny way. Now that I have that dark humor out of the way. So the last time we talked, Chris, was a couple of years ago. We talked about Star Trek Adventures, which has had a fantastic run of success under people like Sam Webb, Jim Johnson. I've also become friends with one of your writers, Aaron Paulier, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago. And it's been a wonderful success. And since then, your company has taken on different licenses. You've done Conan, you've done you've done the Elder Scrolls Call to Arms, which is basically Skyrim, the war miniatures game, and now finally you're doing Fallout, because you had the war game last year, but now we get a chance to role play in the Commonwealth or the Capital Wasteland or the Mojave Desert or wherever we want to. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. I've been excited for it. I mean, we did actually launch a role-playing game expansion for the miniatures game as well, so that fans who are really into their miniatures and already had the miniatures game system could just expand on the gameplay that they already had, so they could start role-playing. But 2D20 is our big house system. And so it was a bit of a no-brainer to go, well, let's create a version, big standalone book that is more for that set of rules, which is obviously not really designed for miniatures and is more cinematic.
So as you've had a chance to develop the the 2D20 system, it's taken on a different sort of life. Because Star Trek, for example, is more about solving puzzles and exploring space and using more diplomacy to deal with an issue than, using a pipe pistol or a super powered punching weapon. Whereas Fallout has always been primarily a combat game. And as I'm looking through the beta edition of the rules, you guys have been able to capture the feel of Fallout in a fairly spectacular way.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, they've team have worked really hard to. It's very much flavored from a sort of Fallout 4 perspective, but it's giving you the building blocks and the tools to basically be able to play Fallout in any of the worlds or versions of Fallout that you like.
Yeah, and that's something that I did notice in the skeleton of what I've been able to notice. You can definitely get the vibe of Fallout 4, which I think is one of Bethesda's best-selling titles ever, and it definitely captures the feel of the Commonwealth during Fallout 4, which I think is the furthest in the timeline that the Fallout world has happened, because I know the latest edition, Fallout 76, for better or for worse, only happens a couple of years after the bombs have dropped and the first vaults have actually opened in Appalachia. But you give us the most tools for us to kind of play with within the 2D20 system and this current version of the game. So I guess when you were putting this together with your team at the studio there, what is it about the Fallout universe that you think 2D20 will easily be able to encapsulate?
Well, when we come to do a new 2D20, it's not like just slapping another logo on the front cover of the rules and changing the names of the weapons. It's very much like a car engine that's tweaked. At the end of the day, the car engine works on the same principles. But we fine tune it to be more like a sports car or be better at 4-wheel drive or whatever. So it's we're quite good at thinking, what is it about this world that we want to bring out? So when we did the Dishonored role-playing game, also with Bethesda, that isn't really a dungeon crawl. I mean, yes, you have a whole bunch of fighting, but there's a lot more subterfuge and taking people out with one strike, a lot of stealth and a lot more kind of social and political stuff. And Dune is the same thing. It's in a similar way. You're playing at a much higher level. You have duels. You don't just hack and slash your way through a palace. So there's a lot more political maneuvering in the game. And a lot more kind of discussion. There's no big spaceship battles, for example. So, Fallout is your classic dungeon crawl in the wasteland, but you couldn't just go, oh, here's a bunch of weapons and here's a bunch of mutations. It's, we needed to look at the system and go, what kind of level of crunch is right for this and is going to, keep it fun and keep it moving fast. I think, the team just got that kind of right level. But that's why the beta is out there, because we want the fans who are massive Fallout fans to come back and go, yeah, this felt like Fallout, brilliant. Or, it didn't really feel like caps were worth it or fitted the system. Or, I didn't really feel like, the Pip-Boy mattered. That's the kind of feedback we try and get with this. And that's the engine modifications that matter, so... for example, in the Fallout Miniatures game, there's a mechanic that reflects the fact that the player has this Pip-Boy that lets you kind of do more in a short space of time. You can freeze time, and everything slows down as you use the sort of tactical mode. And Elder Scrolls, when we did the Miniatures game for that, is it's a similar system, but stamina and magicka are way more important. So, coming back to 2D20, you've always got to think how, because you don't want to just stick a game out with a bunch of name changes. You want people to go, wow, this is brilliant. I don't do games I don't want to play. So if I'm not going to have fun playing it, then it's not going to happen.
One of the things that I think has always made the Fallout games stand out, and you could tell the Fallout guys originally from Interplay and later Bethesda were huge dorks. There's the special system, and you've been able to adapt the special system to fit within 2D20 as well.
Yeah.
What have been the challenges to make something like that work? Because special was like, because it stands for strength. Oh, now I'm trying to remember: strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, luck.
Yeah. Luck.
What has it been like adapting that system to work within 2D20? Because again, this is so different from Star Trek. Star Trek has your basic stats and whatever else, and that works fine. But special, it's more combat oriented, and yet it can be flexible for so much more.
Yeah, the good thing is that essentially Fallout is a role-playing game at its heart. You've got your stats and skills. So Star Trek is a simplified version because you've got your attributes, but then you've got these very broad disciplines of training, and Star Trek represents people at their highest peak. They're as good as they get. Star Trek doesn't really level up. Your character storyline changes, and your values and things that are important to you evolve. You don't get better at strength, necessarily. So, the great thing with Fallout is it already had that. Your special attributes are your gaming attributes, but what it is you've also got to be careful that you don't just try and replicate the entire video game in paper, because the video game does so much for you in the background that takes away a lot of that complexity. So you have to make value judgments about what's actually important here to get across the field. So, you've got the skill structure and stuff, but there's a lot of things that you don't use because that's to do with the video game and can be done in the background. And so there's a certain sort of abstraction that often goes on to make it more fun. And again, the video game is about one person, whereas, the role-playing game is a shared experience with a bunch of people. So you also want to take into account other people around you, and you want people to be able to help each other and do stuff together. So yeah.
So with this game upcoming, and like I said, it's in beta right now. The game is still being designed and written and taking into account players' feedback. One of the biggest parts of a role-playing game is when is the game set and what material can you draw from. So where does Fallout 2D20, where does your game, is it set, or where is the material drawn from in terms of its lore?
So with the first book, the core book, we're starting from a premise of Fallout 4 in terms of giving people some general setting information, the look and feel, the art that's going to be in the book. And it just gives us a starting point. But, at the end of the day, once you've got those stats, it's very easy for you to start up your Fallout 2 content or characters, or go, actually, I want to play in, New Vegas, or, what's left of California. So it's like any role-playing game, you get the engine and you go and play where you want in your own playground. The goal is that we will have expansions that will give you the particular stats and game information that you would need for some of the other key regions and creatures that you don't maybe see in Fallout 4.
But I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys do with like future supplements, because like I said, most of my main experience has been Fallout 4 with Far Harbor, Automatron and whatnot, and all of its expansions. So I'm curious to see what your version of Nuka World might potentially look like and whatnot, but also to take on fan favorites like New Vegas, and some of those monsters are fantastic too, plus some of the major NPCs as well. So I guess when you start working on this game, where do you want to see the Fallout experience end up? Because right now you've got the core systems kind of laid down, or at least a workable skeleton. What does it take to get from a workable skeleton to a finished game? Because this game is in beta, and I've never had a chance to participate in a beta this early on. And it's kind of exciting to know that my feedback will shape this final product.
Yeah, I mean, there's an enormous amount of work. I mean, more so when you're creating a system from scratch. So when we did Mutant Chronicles, there was 2 years of development work into conceiving what was the rule system, the premise. At one point we had 5d20 and it ended up as 2d20. So we had all sorts of fun and games getting to that point and then refining it into something that actually worked and the maths made sense and all the moving parts. So, but even when you have that, those core mechanics, you've got to do a kind of, there's the whole pitch internally here is how's it going to work? What are the sort of principal changes to the 2d20 system? What is what's the concept for the book? What's it going to cover? And then there's all the boring stuff, which is, how much is it going to cost and how much do we have to sell it for? How many do we think we're going to sell? Is this a good idea? So, but you go through all of that. And at the same time, you've got to do the testing. So there's a lot of writing work to just get a usable document like you have that gives you enough information in a sensible, readable English such that you can go off and play a few sessions and have some actual usable feedback. And then, and this is a good year process, really, is to go from that. Okay, we've got 2d20. We know we're going to do Fallout. Let's get started. And Sam, who leads the product team, he started on this, and then got Nathan Dowdle, who's our kind of system lead designer for 2d20, working on it as well. And then it's been, the team's grown to include Virginia as well. So it's the team's grown, the writing team's grown. The art team start working on it, selecting artwork for it. And so that whole year process, involves the beta stage, and there's a lot of work to, define what actually do we want to know about. What we don't want to hear is, I don't like rolling 2d20. It's like, well, this isn't the game for you then, because that is the system. But I think the caps cost is too cheap for this, or it didn't really feel like stealth mode worked, and various things like that, or these skills don't feel right. So that all that interpretation, so figuring out what we want to know back from the beta team, and then analyzing that and drilling it down into something useful for the design team to, because there's and beta feedback. There's a lot of people that want to give, oh no, there's a better way of doing this. You should do X, and that's not actually useful, because what we do want to know is what's broken and how did it break, so that we can fix it. And so that stage is always very difficult to get through, but very important. And then there's several months of finishing, getting it into a good writing state, making sure the licensor, in this case Bethesda, are very happy with it. They have to approve everything that goes in the book, the look and feel, all the text, all the art, the graphic design, and getting the cover art done, and then everything edited and laid out ready to go, and then proofread again, because there's always mistakes, no matter how many times you proofread it. Some of the biggest role-playing games in the world are on their 25th set of errata and multiple print runs. So it's it's one of those things you do your best. And what we try and do now with pre-orders is people get the PDF, and that gives us a good month for hardcore fans to dig into the text and help us spot anything that you missed because you've been looking at it 20 million times. So it's a long, painful process, but very rewarding when you see that book come through from the printers, and you're like, wow, everyone did a great job.
But so yeah, this is something that obviously I'm looking forward to. As I look through my beta edition of this, there's even an introductory adventure included, and it has just enough lore in there that it's familiar to those of you that have played Fallout 4. So if people wanted to get involved in the beta program, how would they have to go about that?
So the team are coming back online early June, so we'll be, I believe. So I think the next step is to get the current beta feedback from everyone who's been playing it, and we appreciate, obviously, people might not have been able to play it during the lockdown, so we have to look at the schedule. I'm not sure whether there'll be another round of beta testing with any updates, and that will be down to the team. And if there is, then potentially people might be able to join in at that stage. And then we've just got to look at the schedule now to what do we need to do to get to launch. So and like I said, the great thing is that 2D20 is a tried and tested system, so it gets increasingly easier to go through the playtest period. So
I guess as one of my final questions here, Chris, when might folks be able to leave the vault, such as it may be? When might we be able to see this game either in PDF or in final finished form?
Well, it's a little bit difficult to say because of the lockdown, and obviously a lot of people have had to take time off and not been working on it. So I think our ambition would be to be able to at least get the PDF out before Christmas. I think the practical reality is the physical edition will probably be after Christmas now, but you never know. Never know what the months ahead will hold. But our goal would certainly to be get you if people join the pre-order, which will be in the fall. Is to be able to get them the PDF before the holidays.
All right, so fantastic. So if people did want to find out more information about your company, where would they have to go?
To Modiphius.net.
All right, folks. Well, that was my interview with Chris Birch. He is the owner and head of Modiphius, and I always have trouble saying that word. I don't know why. Modiphius. It's a fun word. Anyway, so once again, I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens with the Fallout 2 D20 game. I hopefully will be contributing my feedback, and hopefully I will be a Raider, Vault Dweller, or Super Mutant in their game, because I love this universe. I have a Pip-Boy. I have an X1 helmet sitting next to my Ghostbusters firehouse. You might say that I'm a bit of a fan. So anyway, guys, as always, please stay tuned to ThisWeekInGeek.net for more great geek content. And until next time, I'm going to quote my friend Jackie Bam Bam and say, be cool, be kind, be careful. We'll be back again right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
I can feel it wash over me. The heat, the force, the radiation, the fear. It's the end of the world all over again. This wasn't the world I wanted, but it was the one I found myself in. But now I know. I know I can't go back. I know the world has changed. But the road ahead will be hard. This time, I'm ready. Because I know war. War never changes.